every dollar that they spend, they want a KPI or a return of investment. If we are actually struggling, it is because we are too inward.
Welcome to Where Are My Customers? Brought to you by AeroChat and produced by Stridex.
Okay, hi Jessie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Elva. Thanks for inviting me to this podcast.
No problem. So we obviously know each other for quite a while, and it's great to have this opportunity to talk to you about business growth and marketing on this podcast. But of course, for the benefit of the audience and those new to you, right? Can you do a quick introduction of yourself and what you do?
Okay, so my name is Jessie. So I run a branding and marketing agency for about 11 years. So I started my business with like helping SME and then slowly currently serving MNC and some government contracts as well. Yeah, so I handle mostly digital branding projects, and also helping companies do a lot of like marketing. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a fair bit of a journey, especially when you talk about when you first started with SMEs and now you have progressed to work on campaigns for MNCs and governments, right? So I think the first thing that is interesting to me is, right, between the two sets of clients that you work with over the years, what are the differences in terms of running their campaigns? And, are there similarities or differences in the kind of business objectives or marketing objectives that they require?
Okay. So for a lot of like I would take some example from the SME and the MNC brands that I work with. So usually for SME brands, they are very budget constrained. So the budget that every dollar that they spend, they want a KPI or a return of investment. So they are very into like lead generation. They want immediate sales. They want to see traction immediately lah. Okay. But the MNC campaigns that I done, for a certain kind of commercial brand that is like FMCG brand, usually they just wanted like brand awareness, and their budget is usually very high. So they sort of like they are more generous in terms of the budget, and they have more budget to do more interesting campaign. And the ROI is actually not very important to them because they just need a eyeball and brand awareness, because they know that with a good marketing campaign, the sales will come naturally, and the sales touch point, they have multiple sales touch point. But for SME, they have a very small sales touch point. So sometimes they will just be on ecommerce, and if not, pop-up stores. But most of the FMCG brands, they have they sell on all the NTUC, Watsons, and then they have e-commerce and other partners to do the distribution for them. So for them, they are not so kind of like hard on ROI.
Okay, but that also brings another interesting point, right? Because obviously, every startup, every small business, SME aspires to become big and grow to the size of, a national level, regional, or even multinational brand like those MNCs, right? But they start somewhere small and they have budget constraint, like what you said, right? And does it then means that they are stuck because they obviously don't have enough touch points and they don't have the budget? But what can they then do to maximize what they have to actually try to break through to the market? How do you address that kind of challenge?
Okay, so I will take one of a very good case study from a very new startup brand that kind of derived in the pandemic. So there is this supplement brand called Moom Health. So they are a startup. I believe that their budget is also quite constrained, like a normal startup. So what they did was they did a lot of brand co-branding exercise. They did a lot of like, because they for startup, usually you need to do a lot of research, understand your target audience better, see where your target audience is, and then do a strategy. You need strategy because every move that you make actually you need to spend time and money. So these are money and time is very precious for startup. So at the end of the day, I would say the strategy, and also for this brand, they adopted a co-branding effort. So what they did was they create a community out of the co-branding. So they work with like paper bunnies, they work with brands that their audiences love. They be in the cafe, they build the community. So co-branding is one of the effort that you can actually drive to acquire the new target audiences, and then target audiences that is suitable for your brand. You can actually adopt them. Yeah.
Now, what about is there a trade-off in terms of timing and budget? Like what you say is really good, but that obviously also means that it takes time to build up, right? So how do brands go about thinking about that? Meaning like uh, I would imagine a lot of businesses, they want sales fast, right? They want to bring customer in fast, right? But how does that reconcile with this branding effort, because it really takes time to grow, right?
Okay, so for the brand, usually for the startup brand, I will recommend that they actually have a branding effort, a brand awareness campaign, a co-branding effort together along with leads generation strategy. So you can't actually just run one single campaign. You have to look for, you have to definitely have a campaign that drives sales, and then a campaign to build up the brand awareness. So because a new when there is a brand, you need to brand. I mean, a brand needs to actually have a good branding effort so that people will actually buy the value of the brand. Take for example, if you start a new brand, nobody knows about you. You can't attract you can't command a price point for such a new product. You definitely need to kind of like acquire new customers. You need time to educate your customer. You need people to adopt your brand, love your brand, and become a cult follower. Then you will actually build your community and a strong cult following from there. Because nowadays in branding and marketing is very different from the past. A good brand strategy will be knowing your audiences first, then after that, do the research. Then you build a brand to target your audiences. But in the past, people build brands. Then after that, then they target the audiences, which is a little bit different. Yeah.
Okay. Let me dive into that a bit more, okay, because that sounds good, but it can be a bit abstract.
Mm.
So when you talk about, okay, you understand your audience, you understand your community, then you build the brand, right? More specifically, what are more tangible, actionable examples of brand building activities are you referring to when you say build a brand?
Okay, so building a brand could be example community building, right? So for example, Moon Health, because they are a new brand, so what they did, because they actually have got presence in KL as well as Singapore. So in KL, they actually like kind of like take over a cafe, and then they created advertisement, they invite their existing customer to join them for this cafe experience. And then in the cafe, there will be like new audiences visiting the cafe. So at the end of the day, when they have a pop-up over there at the cafe, uh, audiences who doesn't know about Moon Health will come to know about Moon Health because of the experience. And then as the brand collaborates with certain brands, they are actually reaching out to the target audiences in a more lifestyle manner, which is not very hard selling. So take for example, when Moon Health, for example, Moon Health work with Paper Bunny, right? So they created a Paper Bunny bag, and Paper Bunny is a brand that all the Gen Z is like carrying it right now. There's a trend, okay, the puffer bag. So when when Paper Bunny becomes very popular, when Moon Health collaborated a series of color paper bunny bags that can be purchased with like special discount or limited edition, I think that would be a good idea to drive the audiences the to buy things and get something like a perks lah. Maybe you have certain percentage of a discount to buying paper bunny bag. So you sort of have best of the both world. And then in terms of community building, it's also encouraging for brands to kind of like adopt a digital strategy, because during pandemic, we are too much of digital. We consume too much of digital things. And then after pandemic, post pandemic, there's this rise of like events, things open up, and then everybody is hunger for the touch and feel. They want to see things, they want to experience things, and all that. So at the end of the day, I think a good branding will be, a good brand marketing will be having the physical touch point, and then also have a digital touch point, but at the same time building a community, because nowadays it's about community. So how do people build community is that they organize a workshop, they organize outing, they organize special experiential stuff for their audiences to attend. And then on top of that, it's not a one-way kind of conversation. They also created like Telegram chat, and recently, the upcoming trend is that in TikTok, we saw the rise in TikTok live streaming. And in TikTok live streaming, there's this conversation between the host and the audiences. They can ask the host to recommend certain pieces, certain product that they want to see. They have question, the host will actually address it immediately. So these are the kind of like interaction that a brand should actually have with the audiences. Yeah.
Well, but when I'm hearing that, right, it really sounds like there's a lot of work. Like, I mean, if you look, if a business, especially a new one that's starting out, right, just thinking about doing the physical event, just thinking about doing the digital, and then still have to interact with audience on live streaming, right? That really sounds like a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And especially when new brands, new startup, talk to you, do you see that these are, and if so, right, how do you help address such challenges?
Okay, I would see what for me is I will ask the brand about their budget and what's their objective that they want to kind of achieve first. Okay, and from there, I think the thing for startup, as I just now mentioned, is about strategy. So a startup should have a very good marketing plan, a brand strategy, so that they know at which point of time they can actually do certain projects. What is the go-to-market strategy? Example, if you have if you are just on e-commerce, your brand is only on e-commerce, and for your brand to list on like NTUC and all the different supermarket, there will be a listing fee. So to establish your brand online, to create this consumer demand, you definitely need to roll out a strong campaign to capture the audience's attention. And then you need to have sampling pop-up store, to let people sample your goods. Okay. If you can't do it, you don't have the budget to do a activation campaign, then you can do collaboration with, like, example, you can collaborate with banks, can collaborate with schools, give out like a sponsorship, and then maybe you can do even an online request for sampling. So there are different ways to kind of like create this sampling for customers. And then sometimes people also put in goodie bags. So sometimes, if you are a brand that wants to target the students, right, like NYP, SP, and all that, right, so maybe most of the time they have those kind of exam period, and the schools will ask for like sponsorship. That's where you can actually write to them and say, or like to sponsor this amount of like sampling for your students. So, and then maybe with the sampling you can actually create a unique use code for them to come back to know about your brand. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of strategy and a lot of ideas out there in the market, but I would say that I will strategize a strategy that will suit the brand budget, and also a strategy that can work out for the brand.
Okay. Now, based on, all these brands, whether it's big or small, that you have come across, right? And, like what you have shared just now, when you first talk to them, when you first interact with them, right? And looking at the ones that you've gone through so far, what are some of the most common mistakes or most common misconception that most of them would have when they come to you? Like, it's always that few things that you have to, kind of re-educate them or to address before you can move on with the strategy and campaign.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that a lot of startup thinks that to run a campaign, you need to have like few $1 million, and maybe they feel that you need to have at least $500,000 in order to run a campaign. But I think in this era right now that we are doing social media, it is not the big boys that can do the TVC channels, the radio ads, and all that. Right now, we are talking about like social platform and performance marketing, which is actually if let's say you have a few $1,000s budget, you can also do a campaign. If you have a $50,000 budget, you can also do a campaign. So the entry point for brands are quite low. But I think the thing is that if your budget is really really very low, then I would let you know that don't 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 expect a super impactful campaign lah, because at the end of the day, all the big brands are also on this platform. They are throwing a lot of budget to be in this competitor platform as well. There's a lot of competition in this social platform because it's an open platform. So I would say that a brand needs to be able to allocate a substantial amount of budget to run a campaign, but don't be afraid to ask for quotation, ask for a strategy, and then work towards it. Don't just do nothing. At least you do something. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so now, which brings me to another thing that I've always been kind of interested to understand more. And of course, I know you for quite a while. So, I also have an agency that I run. And as you know, we are more focused on the technical execution of it. It's more on the data-driven side of things. Whereas, as far as I understand, you have, all these years been very big on the branding and the creative, and that is reflected in a lot of the work and campaign that you do. So can you share a bit more why that philosophy and why that framework when it comes to marketing? Why is it important, and why should businesses pay attention to the more branding and creative aspect of marketing campaigns?
Okay. So because we are currently in the social platform, we are already spoiled with a lot of like content, So I think currently it's actually very crowded space, and uh us as human being, we are being kind of spoiled with a lot of good content on the social platform. So I think in order for the brand to stand out, they need to be creative, visually and creative. They have to put in a branding effort to make their campaign creative, so that at the end of the day, when they spend the money, it will give them back the returns. Returns in not it's not just about like ROI. Returns in terms of like example, people remember the campaign and people will actually share it with someone. So the campaign becomes more impactful if it's rolled out in a more creative manner. And at the end of the day, brands like example, all the big brands, right? They also invested in a lot of money to run good campaigns. And then some of the campaigns became award winning and became top of the town. Just for example, the recent rebranding for there's this car brand. Can you remember Jaguar, right? Jaguar did a rebranding, right?
I like
They
it.
created so much controversy. They created so much controversy, and that was a very brilliant creative campaign. You know, so they try to become because Jaguar is a like kind of seem like a very prestigious, sophisticated vintage brand, but because of the new generation that they are targeting, the younger generation and the future generation, they created a campaign that is super, sci-fi and super fashionable, that is very abstract as well. So it became the talk of the town. There is like a negative connotation, there's a positive pool of fans, So it became the talk of the town. I always say that the campaign was brilliant, it was successful because it became a talk of the town. Yeah. So I think brands definitely need to come out with more creative campaign, because creativity is something that cannot be replaced by AI, you know. And AI is good in certain aspect, but I think the creative part of the campaign, it makes human think, and also it becomes a memory and becomes a timestamp for our adds color to our life lah. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned a few things, and I'm seeing that there's a lot of jump off points where we can dive into. So I'm going to go into a couple of them one by one. So you obviously mentioned about AI, right? And these days, AI is the talk of town. Like you said, we ourselves, we have an AI chatbot. We're also in the AI space. A lot of marketers are touting AI, like AI content generation, AI video, AI imagery, which, like, I agree, it can be a double-edged sword. But from your perspective, how do you address that dichotomy? When you talk to, first of all, from your perspective as an agency, how do you approach AI and the use of AI, right? And also, you would have customers coming to you and say, hey, can we use AI for this, right? Do you have clients that are dead against AI, or they also die want to use AI? And in fact, they will tell you that, hey, Jesse, why can't we do the campaign for much cheaper? Because right now we have AI to produce. So how do you look at, the questions and all these opinions that comes with the use of AI, especially in creative and marketing?
Okay, I think we have to use AI wisely, and we also have to do fact checking. So at the end of the day, I would say AI is a great help. It helps us to speed up certain processes in our company as well. So take for example, when we are doing market research, in terms of like scouting through every website, Googling everything, we can actually ask AI to give us a very quick research on the market, competitor market, and we can dive deep into the part about our, maybe do a market analysis, that kind of chart, right? So in terms of like table and all that, I think it actually speed up the process. But I think the thing that we need to do as a branding and marketing agency is to do fact checking and data checking, because at the end of the day, whatever AI that was pulling out, it actually depends on how you address and call out the things, like command how AI work for you. In certain aspect, if we actually write in a wrong command, right, the AI prompt will be very different. So I would say that fact checking is something that is necessary no matter what. Okay. And then AI definitely helps to kind of propel idea generation as well. So sometimes maybe my content creators or my content strategies, they may be kind of like blocked with their different kind of like ideas. They do not know how to they are quite blocked with some ideas. So probably you can get AI to kind of give you some idea generation, so that from this idea generation, you spear on and spin it off to match the client's product and the client storytelling, So that is the part that is good for content side. And then in terms of like AI photo and all that, currently, I heard of one of my friend who owns another design agency. The client budget is limited, so the creative designer that work on the project actually uses AI to create their key visuals. Yeah, which I think is possible, because at the end of the day, we are adopting AI, but we have to do it tastefully, and then we also have to do it wisely as well. So AI image, sometimes I also did like some campaign generation. For example, when I'm doing a campaign, then I need to do some storyboarding to sell the story to the to my client. So instead of like using my illustrator to draw all the illustration for the storyboarding, which will take like maybe 3 days, I actually uses a AI storyboard uh platform to generate my AI storyboard. So I could actually call out certain kind of scenario that I wanted, and then the illustration will be done over there. And I can actually send it to my client within like 3 hours, instead of 3 days. So actually I would say that AI can propel the work for us, but we have to use it wisely, and we also need to use our wisdom to kind of like make sure the work that is being delivered to the client is exactly what you have in mind. Yeah, the human touch is still very, very important.
Okay, so just now you mentioned a few tools, right? You mind share like, so you mentioned about there are a few tools that you use to generate images and storyboards. So what are exactly those tools that you are using?
Okay, there's this storyboard. Hold on, let me double check.
I mean, like for us, right? I can tell you honestly, we tried Mid Journey for a while and Stable Diffusion for a while, and then we're like, okay, forget it. This is just too challenging.
Right. For this AI storyboard that I love a lot, but you have to pay for
Mm.
it. So it's called Brutes AI, Brutes.ai. Maybe I can copy the link. It's spelled as BOORDS.com/AI.
Oh, okay, brute. All right, BROOAS.
BOORDS.
BOORDS. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll check it out later.
So it's actually a very good AI storyboard generator. It allows you to customize your characters. And then after that, you
Okay.
can give a name to your characters. You can tell the story, and then they will actually illustrate for you.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so that's for storyboarding. Any other AI tools that you have been using or started to experiment, especially with regards to video content?
Video content, I did try Mid Journey. I think for video content, I haven't explored that much yet. If you have any recommendation, please tell me as well. Yeah,
I
yeah.
I think from what I speak, on the matter of AI, like what you mentioned, right? It definitely helps. But of course, the appropriate usage. I would say, if it's content generation for sure, AI, is superb. If you prompt it and engineer it correctly, that will help with content generation by a lot. And as an SEO agency, I can say that 90% of our content has some form of AI assistance in it, and it works. It's not like it would be penalized or anything.
Mm.
Images like what you have tried, obviously image it works. I think the final frontier, probably from a creative standpoint, is still video. It will definitely get better, but I think at this very moment, even the AI tools, right, can't really give very comfortable. I wouldn't use the word realistic. They're definitely realistic. It's just that it's not comfortable for human consumption.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you look at an AI generated video, no matter how realistic, it just feels off. And your human vibe can feel it, right?
Yes.
And I think video is probably the last frontier in creative, right? That still require a lot of human element. So I think videographers, video producers still got job lah.
But I would say that Photoshop came out with the beta, and it's
Mhm.
actually quite useful. So when we were editing certain kind of like key visuals or Shutterstock images that we want to add, change certain kind of fabrics or add a different kind of like color to the hair, etc. They did it quite well for Photoshop beta. Currently I have a challenge, which is like I recently filmed a campaign, and then there was a mistake that one of my videographer made. He forgotten to close the lid of the box, which
Okay.
which is the thing that actually the client was like asking for it. So because it's a video, so video can't be edited. So we
Mm.
were praying that, oh, I would really wish someone to get like to actually create a product that can help me to edit the lead lah. So I don't need
Okay.
to do a refilming. So
I
but
see.
it did not happen lah. I can't
Mm.
find the software as well. So it should will need to happen, no. Yeah.
Right. Understand. Yeah, I think video is probably still a challenging part, and in fact, that's also kind of the reason why, for us, when it comes to content, a lot of our content generation has been, using AI, except for the video part. In fact, video we kind of double down on the human resource because we realize people want that human authenticity when it comes to video content. But
Mm.
going back to just now, you mentioned about the Jaguar example, which is really kind of a interesting one, and I'm fascinated by your take and
Mm.
your position on that campaign, because most of the people I know, including myself, right, we don't really have a positive take on that whole campaign. So I think, but the more interesting question I want to ask, right, is, okay, as a campaign, it is definitely creative, it's definitely out of the box, right? For the attention grabbingness of it, right, for lack of a better term, the attention grab of it, like you said, it definitely achieved what it set out to do. But I think the bigger question for businesses is, right, when you have this thinking or this, on one hand, you want to do creative campaigns and you want to break off the mold and you want to make people take notice. But on the other hand, how do you juggle whether it would alienate your audience or would it create problems for your sales cycle? Because at the end of the day, all campaigns have to support the ultimate business objective of driving revenue, right? So that's, I think, the concern. Now, Jaguar probably is, if they are a multi-million-dollar brand, they probably can take one or two bad campaigns. It could be attention grabbing. It doesn't move sales. They can move on to other campaigns. But a lot of other businesses probably can't take that hit. So there's always this dilemma of, should I go for something that's more edgy? Should I go for something that's more creative? And I don't know whether it will get me sales, or do I go with something that is more conventional, that is safer, because that's all I know. So what's your take on that kind of dichotomy?
Okay, so my take is I would say that this is just my thoughts, okay? So I feel that for Jaguar to make such a bold move, it's also because they have a lot of data back research. They also look into the sales trend from their marketing, from their previous sales. They definitely did a thorough look at their current audiences, okay, in order to create for them to come out with this campaign. I don't believe a brand such as Jaguar will do very thoughtless kind of like campaign without any fact checking and market research. I believe that the vision for Jaguar is to really create the future. They want to target the future audiences. They want to target the young audiences. Definitely Jaguar still will have their vintage design, because Jaguar will also have their vintage design that people will like and people will buy. But I think the launch of this new series is actually for the younger generation. Yeah, so it's really, I would say that because we are not in the Jaguar team, we are not in the management team, we do not know the data and the fact checking that they have went through with their analysis. So we cannot just kind of like give a remark, because at the end of the day, when they do something, they should have a plan, So definitely in the campaign, a marketing agency should have a plan A and a plan B, So if let's say the campaign roll out and the results is good, and then what's next? What's the plan B next? How are you going to sustain the results? And then if the result is not good, then what are the actions taken to tweak, or kind of like what's the action taken for plan B in order to achieve or help the client to push for more results? Yeah. So that's my take lah. Yeah.
Right. But like again, right? Jaguar, being Jaguar, they probably can take a hit or two. But when it comes to a SME or a startup, right? How would you advise them if they when they look at it? How should they approach it? To be more creative, to be more daring, and risk taking on more controversy, or look at things that have been tried and tested in their industry or what their competitors have done.
I think for brand, they have to go back to their core. Okay. So they have to understand the core of what is the USP, or what is the brand. What are we trying to tell our customers? at the end of the day, it really depends on the product that or the service that you are selling. I would say authenticity will be the best. Because gimmick or kind of like following trends can only happen like just a kind of flick of a finger, like after a while it's not there. But I think for brands to be relevant, to kind of like have a long-term strategy, is to be authentic. Just be honest with the brand. The campaign can be creative, but the USP has to be authentic and stick back to the core brand, the core belief of the brand. So in terms of like in certain platform, like social platform, you can be more daring, but maybe in a radio ads, you want to be more uh sharing of the authenticity and the USP of the brand. I think the brand need to strategize the tone of the voice, and also kind of like strategize the content, what kind of content to put out in different platforms. Yeah, like example, when you are doing a PR article, then most of the fact checking, the content sharing, the storytelling of the founder, how they create the brand, these are actually important information that people will actually relate to. Then if it's a advertisement, then they can be more creative and more quirky, or more creative lah. Then when it comes to social media content, you could also have like trending content that like connects to the trending song, like apazi, that kind of thing. But when it comes to a certain kind of YouTube content, maybe you're in a panel talk and all that, then just bring back your authentic self lah. So I would say different platform, different strategy. Yeah, but the brand has to stick to their core.
Which again goes back to something we talked about just now, which is like there are so many platforms, and like you mentioned, this platform probably have this consideration and that platform has that consideration. Again, it sounds like a lot of work. Again, it sounds like there's a lot of resources needed, right? So, and there are two school of thoughts when it comes to approaching, marketing, right? You have, the quote unquote, I call it the Gary V school of thought, where you need to be everywhere, all the time, all at once, and you just keep pushing out everywhere so that, you maximize the attention. Then there is also the other school of thought, which is being advocated by people like Alex Hormozy, right? Where is you find a channel that works and you double down on it, and then you get really, really good at it. You make your first couple of million on it, and then you squeeze and maximize some. Then you move on and expand to other channels, right? So what's your take on this? How do you look at it, and how do you advise brands to navigate this?
For a startup brand.
Yeah, let's say for a startup brand.
Okay, so the brand has to allocate a budget for a full year first. And then in terms of the testing, they definitely need to do some testing, like put some budget to run some ads for different platforms. And after maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you will need at least 6 months to kind of have a very consolidated data lah. Okay, so from these 6 months of rolling out the campaign, they can identify which platform actually gave them the ROI. Okay, so then after that, they can double down on the platform and the channel that give them the most ROI, but still maintaining the different channels presence. Because at the end of the day, audiences like us, why are brands on so many channels? Is because of the consumer behavior. Because we as consumer right now, we don't just want a single platform. Like example, in the past, we use Facebook a lot, but currently I'm not using Facebook anymore. I'm using Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, right? So different ages, different consumer goes to different platform. And example, my nieces, they are actually on YouTube channel. They are really on YouTube channel. I'm not a very YouTube person, so, but my dad, for example, he's on Facebook channel. My mom is on Facebook channel. And then the siblings and the age group that people in the 20s to 45 or 30s, they are actually in Instagram, TikTok channel. So where is your audiences? They are actually not just using a single platform. They are actually using multiple platform, and business owners and startup entrepreneur, and certain kind of PNETs, we are starting to use small LinkedIn channel as well as a social platform. So at the end of the day, if you ever, I don't know whether you scroll through your LinkedIn, you in the past you don't see any kind of lifestyle ad like selling cars or maybe certain kind of fashion brand. But recently, right, as you scroll through LinkedIn, right, you will see like Gucci actually put on an ad over there. BMW actually launched a sponsored ad, when we are scrolling through, so these are some of the things that brands are also uh leveraging on the platform to be there.
Yeah, I think I saw some BMW. I'm
Mm,
pretty sure I don't see Gucci. I think you saw Gucci because it's you. They're targeting you. They're not targeting me. I do. I mean, I see the BMW one. But you brought up a good point, which is you're talking about LinkedIn, right? And that goes to a lot of founders, a lot of business owners these days are being more active, more present on LinkedIn, and that has a lot to do with personal branding, right? A
mm.
lot of business owners are developing their personal brand to try and surface themselves. So, what's your take on personal brand, and how do you approach it as a business owner? Do you see it as something that you know that you have to do because you're providing an agency service? How do you navigate that?
Okay, so I started my personal branding journey last year lah. So I see definitely a need that personal branding needs to be done, not just for business owner, but I think for every individual, I think it's important. Even PMETs or executive, they could also do personal branding because when they take the leadership role to share something, their thoughts, and it's also like kind of like uh they will attract opportunity for themselves, you know because sometimes I do check on my colleagues, what they share on LinkedIn as well. I want to understand what are their thoughts, on leadership, on I mean on their thoughts on certain design trends and the certain leadership. They do share good content that I also learn from as well. So it's an exchange, I would say. But I think for LinkedIn, personal branding, it needs to be authentic. It can't be just for the sake of doing it. And a lot of founders are using AI to do the content, So I would say that personal branding is important in LinkedIn lah. I think for everybody. Yes, for business owner is very important. But I would say when I started last year, I did kind of like feel that I was kind of out there and more outspoken. Yeah, because a lot of times when I do my projects, after I finish my projects, I just keep quiet and nobody knows what kind of project I do, So it's good to kind of share the things that I do so that people know that they can seek help from me when they want to enter a new market, Yeah, and then they can actually have certain kind of like they could also invite me for certain sharing or panelist talk and all that. So I think it's a place for knowledge sharing, a place for support for community as well. Because this year, last year is not easy for business owner, So I think when we share our struggles, there's a lot of content out there. A lot of entrepreneurs that I know that are struggling last year, so when they share their authentic story, I think people can feel it. There is encouragement notes coming from different people. And I think that is a very good space to have this positive community.
Again, like what you just shared, right? Again, I'm seeing multi layers to fork the conversation off to. But there are two things that are right now at the top of my head, right? Where you talk about, so there are two parts. One, you talk about the authenticity portion, right? And then you also talk about a lot of people, a lot of, people that we know in the network and the connections. they're not really doing that well last. So I want to jump into the part about authenticity first. A lot of people are saying, oh yeah, when you build a personal brand, you need to be authentic, So the big buzzword is authenticity. But is being authentic sometimes a bit too much? Is it like being too authentic can be a bad thing? Like to the point where sometimes people are sharing things that are way too personal, way too vulnerable, and way too frequent. Like is no longer business. It's so what's your take on that? And how can someone who's developing personal brand, right, navigate that, without being, for lack of a better term, without being cringy?
I think balance is the key word, okay, that I will advise everybody to adopt when sharing content, So, as a personal branding, definitely there are some things that sometimes when I write a certain kind of story that I want to share with my audiences, before I post it, I will actually reflect on what kind of comments I will generate from the audiences. Is it a negative sharing or is it a positive sharing? So if it's a very negative sharing, then I will not share it. I will actually remove it because I think that in LinkedIn community, I think it's good to have positive sharing. Negative is not say you can't share, but I think it's better not to share because at the end of the day, when you share a negative sharing, it reflects on your personal being as well, So I did have a negative sharing in the past where one of my ex staff did something and then I share my experience and then I got certain kind of support. But lately, after reflecting for a few months, I actually removed the post because I feel that I do not want to be relate to that kind of personality because I am bigger than that person that I was, Because sometimes we are too caught up in our own situation. We will be kind of like using our own thoughts to justify, to paint, to let people know that we are being misunderstood and, but at the end of the day, I just felt that it's not needed because at the end of the day, when you are doing things right, everybody will be supportive of you. You don't even need to tell people what you need to do, or people who support you, they know you are not that kind of person. They will fight for you. They will vouch for you. So I feel that that time when I removed the sharing, the sort of not say super negative, but negative and not say negative, I would say more emotional sharing, I remove it from my LinkedIn post because I feel that as a professional, I do not want to paint myself as that kind of like, persona. So
Right.
I want to curate myself I want to be kind of like be mindful of what I share, to have a more positive impact. So I think before we share anything, it's good to kind of like have a soft reflection first. Then after that, reflect whether will it have any implication on your professional, uh, persona. Then after that, you do the sharing. I think authenticity, in terms of being weak and if let's say you are facing a struggle, I don't think that it's not good to share. I feel that it's good to share because sometimes you may also drive in like supporters and maybe one of your maybe you chance upon a venture capitalist that will salvage a certain situation, So if let's say I also think that mentors are very important. So as entrepreneur and startup, I think it's good to have very wise mentor that will give you very good advice because along the way, there will be many difficulties that you will face lah in this challenging world. So as good as you need to have some mentors to kind of give you the proper guidance lah.
Okay. Well, that's really quite insightful, and I think yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, including myself. Especially we are doing personal branding. Probably not go for the cheap shots. Just to milk emotions, but to be very careful about what we are really putting out there because that obviously reflects what people perceive of us and what we truly feel as well. On the other side of it, you just now also mentioned that, and a lot of all this emotional sharing and more raw sharing probably comes from the fact that a lot of people are not doing so well last year, right? I've heard of that. I've heard from many people in my network that, it's not most people that, even people that I assume are doing quite well, are actually not doing that well. Can you speak to that a bit? What do you think was wrong, or what do you think happened in last year 2024 where a lot of people are actually not really doing that well? What do you think is the main reason for that?
I would say that during pandemic, there was a over hiring, okay, and then the adoption for digital and content and everything just kind of like scaled down it like suddenly, So I think during our starting of 2024, I have a lot of agency friends and business friends. So they were saying that business was very slow beginning of last year. Okay. So I think the thing is that because a lot of brands are actually going out of Singapore. Brands are actually going into emerging countries. So bigger brands are going into like Vietnam, Cambodia, India, and other countries. I think the challenge here in Singapore is that because we have rising costs, inflation, and also there's these wages of increase in wages, so it becomes very challenging for business owner in Singapore to keep up with the pricing, like the price point. And in because Singapore is such a small country and there's a lot of competition if every company is looking into uh closing a business in Singapore, right? So the it's just a small dot, So I would advise companies to actually look out of Singapore, expand overseas, and then with the help of EDG grant, which I actually help a lot of my clients to get the EDG grant, and then pivot them to expand overseas with MRA grant. So I think Singapore is just a small dot lah. So we need to get out, and then the bigger market is outside. If we are actually struggling, it is because we are too inward. We are just closing business within our circle of friends, our immediate contacts or referrals, and then pitching for government job. Last year I think there's a government job, there's a job listing, and then in the end 35 companies participated in the tender.
Oh,
So
wow.
so the cheapest cost will win the project,
Mm.
right? So at the end of the day, how can companies survive in Singapore if you are always going for all the low hanging fruit, right? So we definitely need to be more aggressive, be more brave to go out to the country, maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe Dubai, maybe other countries, other parts of the world to clinch bigger deals, bigger projects. Yeah. And then be internationalized. I think that will be a better kind of like a better marketplace because it's a much bigger marketplace. Yeah. So I think the challenge is really about everybody is too inward and then trying to get jobs inside Singapore. So people who are actually doing overseas project, they did not struggle. Their companies are all surviving really well. Yeah. So I think that is the thinking that I have lah for last year.
Well, that's interesting. You spoke of it. I think businesses, um, you know, brands, and agencies as well in Singapore definitely took quite a bad hit.
Mm.
But I also have heard from my network from other parts of the region, across Asia, and even some in North America as well, that are also not doing as well last year, which was actually quite surprising to me. So I assume it could be more of a global thing that everybody's kind of feeling some of the factors that you mentioned just now. But looking forward, right? I mean, we are obviously now in a new year, start of a new year. Taking into account what you just said, about the challenges and some of the factors, right? Moving forward, if there's one thing that brands should focus on, right? Be it businesses or agencies, like if there's one thing that brands should focus on to attract more customers and grow, what would that be?
I would say get your hands dirty on TikTok. Yeah, because
Oh, okay.
TikTok social commerce is something that is a direct sales. It's a kind of like a you don't really need a super crazy budget to get things started. You can also adopt our agency to kind of like help you to do some TikTok live streaming, live sales, brand awareness. So I mean, TikTok is gonna be a good platform for new brands and existing brands because you can through the live stream educate your product USP, do your content sharing, and then acquire new customer audiences and ask them to do a immediate purchase. I think that is the thing that a lot of brands want, which is immediate purchase. Yeah. So I think TikTok is the future. I mean, it works for America. It will work in Asia as well. It's actually we are kind of like we are actually quite slow lah in the game, but I would believe that this year everything will pick up really fast.
Right. But I mean, TikTok is still not back in US right now, right? It's still off, right? Is it?
You question mark. Depends on Trump. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their problem to solve.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay, so TikTok, yeah, all right, that's interesting. Okay, definitely something to look into. At least we don't have to worry about it being banned. So definitely
Yeah,
something
and
for
I also want
Asia.
to do I also want to do a shout out for your AeroChat. I think AeroChat is also a platform that brands should have in their website because AeroChat helps to answer all the less important question, right? It's like customer service, right? So I think brands should actually adopt AeroChat as well in their e-commerce platform.
Yeah, thanks for the shout. I mean, we definitely do agree. We are definitely doing thoughts ourselves. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that definitely can help with efficiency and productivity, right? And more importantly, get customers to buy faster. I think that's what all brands and businesses want. And thank you for coming onto the show. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you enjoy this podcast, subscribe and share it with your friends. We drop new episodes every week, so stay tuned. See you in the next one.